Hello hipsters, Chris here from the podcast. Just hitting you up with a bit of information on our sponsors. We are very happy to say this season we are backed for the season by Chris and his team at 4elementswebdesign.co.uk. That's where you'll find them. You'll also find them on Twitter at 4elementsDES. What do 4Elements do? Well, if you're looking to build yourself the most hipsterish website possible, they are the guys for you. Branding, web design, marketing, video production, they're the four main elements, but they also look at so much more besides. Don't forget their tagline, beautiful websites, brands and strategic marketing solutions to take your business to the next level. Hit up Chris and his team, let them know that we sent you, and he might give you a little present. No promises, but what he will do is give you a fantastic website. So just a reminder, that is 4elementswebdesign.co.uk. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. Technically, this is week 15 for those of you that are counting. I am your host, Chris, and tonight we've got a show with a difference. I shall explain more shortly, but alas, I shall get my guests involved first of all. Just the three of us tonight, as the song did not go. First of all, it's the man behind the buttons and all the English knowledge. It's Mr. Josh Dorr. Hello, Josh.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. We're day late, but with good reason, schedules and all that jazz. But we're here, and we've got a fun show for the listeners this evening, so it's all good. And we couldn't be Lana-less, could we? We've managed to get Lana back in as well. So good evening, Medea.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
We're all good. So we're all good. Nice to have you back on.
Thank you.
Obviously, we've lost Joel and Ross this evening. Joel is stuck somewhere in Manchester, and Ross is at a Christmas party this evening. So I'm sure he's got a pointy Christmas hat on at a jaunty angle, and no doubt some sort of beverage in hand. So I hope you have a good time, Ross. Right. Listeners, this podcast is going to be a little bit different to the norm. When we record a little bit late, we're always in a bit of a dilemma as to whether we're going to cover all the weekend's action or whether we're just going to freshen it up a bit. So what we've decided to do is tonight we're going to focus on the Champions League and Europa League. We haven't talked about them for quite a while since the poor old Satchel left us. So that's what we're going to do tonight. However, in the shortest, quickest way possible, just in case some of our listeners haven't been across European action from the weekend, because we know not all of you cover all of the European and indeed domestic leagues, we are going to do a quick roundup. So I'm going to take you through Europe, and then Josh is going to help me get through a quick update from England as well. So we're going to start in Italy in Serie A. Juventus against Inter Milan was obviously the big game, the Derby d'Italia. It ended 0-0. It wasn't the greatest spectacle in the world, dominated by Inter in the first half, with Juve certainly being the more dominant forceful side second half. But I've got to be honest, it wasn't the greatest spectacle in the world. The result of which leaves Inter still top of the table and indeed unbeaten. Udinese picked up a 3-0 victory away at Crotone on the Monday fixtures last week, and Hellas Verona and Genoa ended in a win for Genoa. So then we went into the weekend's action. Cagliari with a 2-2 draw at Sampdoria, home to Sampdoria, I should say. Quagliarella put Samp 2 up, but Pavoletti and Farias getting Cagliari back into it. Chievo, Roma and Napoli Fiorentina, both 0-0 on the Sunday. Not many goals around in the early games in Serie A on the Sunday. Spal and Hellas Verona did serve up 2 goals apiece. That was a 2-2 draw. Martin Caceres, Southampton fans might or might not remember, got one of those goals. And Marco Antonucci, formerly of Leeds, with an 88th minute equaliser from the penalty spot. Udinese followed up their 3-0 win on Monday with another win against poor old Benevento, back to normal for them. Barak and Kevin Lasagna serving up a lovely dish to win 2-0. Sassuolo beating Crotone 2-1. Goldeniega and Politano with the goals for Sass, and Milan getting a much-needed victory 2-1 over Bologna in the night game. Bonaventura with the 2 goals after Simone Verde had levelled. And on the Monday game played yesterday, a bit of a thriller, bit of a surprise as well. Torino winning 3-1 away to Lazio in no small part due to Ciro Immobile's straight red card at the turn of the halfway point of that game, and goals from Berenguer, Rincon and Edera getting the points for Torino. Much needed points for Torino, who are now unbeaten in 5. So that was Serie A from the weekend in a very short, condensed version. Inter, Napoli, Juve, Roma and Lazio make up the top 5. And down at the bottom, Benevento, Verona and Spal are the teams propping up the table. As far as next weekend's games go, probably the big game of the weekend. It's hard to say, actually. Verona Milan is probably worth a watch early Sunday morning. Top of the table, Inter host Udinese. Benevento host Spal in a game that maybe they might get some points from. And Atalanta Lazio is probably the glamour fixture on the Sunday evening. So it's a very quick look at Serie A. We're going to do the same thing for La Liga in Spain this week. We saw a fair few, I wouldn't say maybe surprising results, I don't know, but a 5-0 win for Real Madrid was a slight surprise against Sevilla. That was on the Saturday fixtures, including a couple of goals for Cristiano Ronaldo in that one. Also a goal for Hakimi as well. On the Friday night, Deportivo Alaves beat Las Palmas by 2-0. Much needed points for Alaves, who were bottom of the league previously. That result takes them up. Getafe and Eibar playing out a 0-0 on Saturday, and Deportivo La Coruña winning 1-0 against Leganés. Adrian with the winner there. Valencia back to winning ways, 2-1 victory over Celta Vigo. Simone Zatsa and Dani Parejo with the goals there. Iago Aspas with the reply for Celta Vigo. Malaga, much needed points for them. Surprising this one, 2-0 win away at Sociedad. Borja Baston and Jordi Castro with the goals there. Real Betis losing at home. Atletico Madrid with a 1-0 win. We've heard that a few times, haven't we? Saul with the winner there. And Bilbao also winning away. Aduriz and Sergio Postigo own goal, securing the points for the Athletic Club away at Levante. Barcelona also on winning ways, a 2-0 victory for them on the Sunday evening. Probably a little bit more comfortable than it should have been or could have been after Dani Rabo was sent off for Villarael in the 60th minute before Suarez and Messi got the points. And last night, Monday, saw Espanyol lose at home to Girona. Timor with the winning goal for Girona. And all of that means Barcelona are still top with Valencia 5 points adrift in second. Atletico, Real and Sevilla making up the top 5. Villarreal just outside it. Las Palmas now bottom with Deportivo Alaves jumping up to 18th with their win. Malaga 19th with Deportivo La Coruña, Espanyol and Levante all slightly looking over their shoulders. In terms of the next fixtures next weekend, Real Madrid, I think, are off to sunnier climes to play the World Club Championship, so they won't be in action. Eibar Valencia has got a decent look to it, as does Bilbao Sociedad, which is on the Saturday 3:15 fixtures. As usual, Joel is your man if you want to talk a little bit more Spain. Over to Germany now. Hope you're keeping up, listeners. Last weekend in Germany saw the Friday night fixture. Stuttgart losing at home to Bayer Leverkusen. 2-0 victory for Leverkusen. Kai Havertz, who former hipster's choice, for those of you that remember us from last season. And Lars Bender, good to see him back on the score sheet. 2-0 win for Leverkusen. Borussia Dortmund parted company with Peter Bosch after yet another defeat at home, this time to Werder Bremen. Nobody saw this one. Well, or did they see it coming? Maybe they did. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang had equalised Eggstein's opening goal for Bremen, but Gebre Selassie hit the winner in the 65th minute. RB Leipzig and Mainz played out an entertaining 2-2 draw. Goals for Campbell and Werner in that one for Leipzig. Eintracht Frankfurt losing at home to Bayern Munich, but no disgrace in that. Arturo Vidal's header was enough for the champions. Hamburg and Wolfsburg played out a very surprising 0-0 draw. I thought this one would have goals written all over it, but it didn't. Borussia Mönchengladbach likewise, but only 2 were served up between these two. Christoph Kramer, an equaliser from Jos Vestergaard. Own goal for Schalke resulting in a 1-1 draw. Certainly, no doubt, game of the weekend was to be seen in the snow in Cologne. A 4-3 victory for Freiburg, having been 3-0 down inside of 30 minutes. But a second half rampage. Niels Petersen hat-trick, including 2 stoppage time penalties, secured a huge 3 points for Freiburg. Do check out the highlights of that if you haven't seen it. It's nuts. Hanover also with a back to winning ways for them. Goals from Füllkrug and Martin Harnik, rather surprisingly beating off Nagelsmann's Hoffenheim 2-0 in that one. And Augsburg and Hertha Berlin drawing 1-1 in the game on the Sunday afternoon. As an equaliser from Kalu in the 90th minute for that one. Bayern Munich remain top. They are 7 points clear of RB Leipzig now, with Schalke, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Bayer Leverkusen in the top 5, with Hoffenheim and Augsburg just outside. Borussia Dortmund currently down in 8th place. Unthinkable. They've employed Peter Stöger, the former Cologne coach, and his former side, Cologne, still bottom. 3 points really are adrift. Werder Bremen with that win. 3 wins in 5 now, extending the gap. Cologne look doomed. Freiburg, Hamburg, Mainz and Stuttgart are all anxiously looking over their shoulders. In terms of the fixtures, we have an English Avoca ongoing as we speak. So midweek fixtures. Borussia Dortmund are away at Mainz. Hamburg are at home to Frankfurt. Freiburg placing Mönchengladbach, and Wolfsburg against Leipzig is actually a result from earlier, which was 1-1. And we have Wednesday fixtures as well, including Bayern Munich against Cologne. That could be any score, and Leverkusen against Werder Bremen. In terms of the weekend's fixtures, standout fixtures, probably Borussia Dortmund against Hoffenheim, although Stuttgart, Bayern Munich might also be tasty, as indeed may well be Hanover against Leverkusen on the Sunday. So that is results from the Bundesliga. And just the one more to go in France before I give my mouth a rest and let Josh come in. In France in Ligue 1 this past weekend, we saw an amazing result for Strasbourg. They just get better and better. 3-0 winners against Bordeaux, who continue their horrible tumble down Ligue 1's table. That was the Friday night game. PSG back to winning ways, including a 50-yard dash from Kylian Mbappe to secure the 3rd goal in a 3-1 win against Lille. Angel Di Maria and Javier Pastore also on the sheet for PSG. Angers, Montpellier playing out a 1-1 draw, and Guingamp beating Dijon by 4-0, including a goal there for Marcus Coco, formerly Hipster's choice in that one. Metz and Rennes drawing out 1-1. Metz feel slightly unlucky not to take 3 points there. Much the better side overall. Monaco came from 2-0 down to beat Troyes with 2 goals in the last 5 minutes from Guido Carrillo, securing the points for the Monegasques. And Toulouse beating Caen also on the Saturday night, including a goal from Max Gradel from the penalty spot. 2-0 over Caen, securing a win for them. And then on the Sunday, Lana's OL getting a much hard-fought victory away at Amiens. 2 goals from Hassim Aouar, who of course we love on this podcast, including a 90th minute winner for the young teenage sensation. So he got the points for OL. Nice also continuing their much-needed climb up the table. 3 straight wins and only 1 defeat in 5 now. They're up to 8th place with a 2-1 victory away at Nantes. Balotelli and Alisson Player back on the score sheet in that one. And Marseille destroyed St Etienne on Sunday night. It was 3-0. It could easily have been 33-0. St Etienne absolutely terrible under Sabali, suggesting that maybe a change of coach is in the offing already there. 2 goals for Valère Germain and Lucas Ocampos with the 3rd clinching goal in that one. And all of that means PSG is still top, which we know they're going to win the league. Let's be honest, they are clear from Lyon in 2nd and Monaco in 3rd, with Marseille, Nantes and Rennes in the top 6, with Montpellier and now Nice resurgent on the rails. Metz seem to be gone, 5 points from 17, 10 points adrift of Angers, second bottom, with Lille still scruffing it in the relegation playoff spot, with Troyes, Toulouse, St Etienne and Bordeaux all suddenly looking over their shoulders. When you consider that 7th place Montpellier have 23 points and 15th place St Etienne have 20 points, it's all very close. And in terms of Liga for next weekend's fixtures, there's midweek League Cup action, but in terms of Ligue 1, probably the fixture worth looking out for the most, of course, Lyon against Marseille, which is a 8 p.m. UK time kickoff next Sunday. That's certainly the one that I will be having a little look at myself. So that is it. Just one other result before we cross the borders and come back home to England, and I'll let Josh bring you up to speed with what happened in the Premier League and indeed the EFL. There was, of course, the MLS Cup final, or MLS Cup final, as of course I should say, which, if you haven't listened to the podcast, it might be slightly out of date, but hey, go back and listen to it. Jimmy and Pat were part of the special we released last week, and honours go to TFC, who are MLS Cup champions. One of the goals there from Jose Altidore secured the 2-0 victory and secures MLS Cup. Probably for the favourites, probably over the course of the piece, were the best side in MLS. So America has Canadian champions. We're right in the middle of the trading season in America at the moment, so lots of players will be going here, there and everywhere, and we may well get Jimmy and Pat to produce a little bit of information for us once all of those transfers are done, so we know exactly who's going to be going where in the trades. Right, I'm going to give my voice box a rest for a minute. Josh, if you're still awake, can you give us a very brief outline as to what went on in the English Premier League and EFL this past weekend? I'm sure most people will know, but give us the headlines.
Yeah, cheers, Chris. I hope your voice will cope with the rest of the pod, but for now, over to me. The big story from the Saturday games, I think, is West Ham getting a win versus Chelsea. A 1-0 win, first for David Moyes since he's been there, and looks to all but have quashed Chelsea's title chances. Antonio Conte has said something to that. But moving on to other games, we've also got Burnley came out 1-0 winners versus Watford. They're also playing, both those teams are also playing this evening as we record. We have Crystal Palace and Bournemouth came with a 2-2 draw. Christian Benteke missing a penalty near the end that he'd taken off one of his fellow pros, and a lot of controversy there, but again he starts this evening. Huddersfield managed to get one over Brighton, 2-0 win. Huddersfield last year beat them 3-0 at their own stadium, so slightly better for Brighton, but again looking a bit worrying for that team and for Huddersfield, a well-needed win. Talking about well-needed wins, Swansea also managed to get a 1-0 win over West Brom. Tottenham Hotspur, the big winners this weekend, with a 5-1 demolition job of Stoke. Not good reading for Mark Hughes' team. Really needs to start getting on there. They've only got 65 points out of a possible 60 games, if I remember rightly. It's not a good result for them at all. This is a long ongoing thing, and perhaps he's the next manager for the chop. And the final game that we had on the Saturday, Newcastle United going down 3-2 to Leicester City. And then over to the Sunday games, we had the early game which resulted with Southampton drawing with Arsenal. A late equaliser from Olivier Giroud cancelled out the opening goal from Charlie Austin. And the two derbies that we saw, Merseyside derby where the spoils were also shared, 1-1. Jurgen Klopp appears to have over-rotated that team, and I think a very poor result when you look at the stats for that game, but they'll look to bounce on and move on from that result. And the big game of the weekend, Man United versus Manchester City. Manchester City taking all the spoils in a 2-1 victory. I think a scoreline that flatters Man United especially. Midweek fixtures, we have 3 going on this evening as we record Tuesday the 12th. Burnley, Stoke, Palace, Watford and Huddersfield, Chelsea. And then some more on Wednesday with the big games in there would be looking at Newcastle, Everton, Southampton, Leicester, Swansea, Man City, Liverpool, West Brom, Man United, Bournemouth, Tottenham versus Brighton and West Ham versus Arsenal. That leaves Manchester City extending their lead to 11 points at the top of the table. Some might say it's premature to give them the title now, but with the formidable form they're in at the moment and the chasing pack just not at that high standard, then perhaps it's not too early. Some bookmakers have already paid out on Manchester City being crowned the champions. But as we say, it's only December. there's still half a season to go. Now over to the Championship. We saw Hull City, after changing their manager, get a 3-2 win over Brentford. Also another key result, Middlesbrough finally turning around some dodgy form with a 2-0 victory over Ipswich. And we've also got, from a big result there, Reading drawing 2-2 with Cardiff City on the Monday. That really didn't help the chasing pack of Wolves, who are still top, even though they managed to stumble and only get a 0-0 draw with Sunderland. So some good work being done by Chris Coleman there, who's been able to stop them conceding. And we shall fly quickly through League One as well. Bradford City became a victors over a 7-goal thriller versus Rochdale, winning 4-3. Bristol Rovers managing to turn around some poor form again with a 3-0 victory over Southend United. Oldham Athletic managed to put 5 past Northampton in a 5-1 victory. Shrewsbury have managed to kind of lose their way after losing their unbeaten one. They only managed to get a draw 1-1 with the MK Dons, and Wigan got a 2-0 win against Fleetwood, who are really dropping down the table, one of my early favourites to win the league. We've got a couple of FA Cup fixture replays this week for a couple of postponed fixtures. And talking about postponed, we had one fixture on the Saturday, Accrington versus Swindon Town in League 2, that was postponed due to the inch of snow also that has blighted England this week. Other big victories we saw across here, Grimsby getting a 1-0 victory over Forest Green Rovers, Morecambe getting a 2-0 win over Coventry, and a high scoring game with the 3-3 draw between Newport and Carlisle. Big game there as well. And there's also a couple of games that will run into the weekend on there, which we will cover in next week's pod. Chris, back over to you.
Lovely job. Thank you very much. Hopefully, listeners, you got the best of that. I think that's the fastest we've ever whipped through our leagues that we cover. But hopefully, you've got all the results that you needed from that. And I'm sure we've got a couple of questions that will tie into some of those leagues as we progress through the podcast. So, yes, a little bit of a change, as we said, to the usual structure of this pod. So we're going to talk about these draws. So, let's start by looking into these fixtures. Well, should we start? We'll start with the Champions League, because that's probably the glamour, isn't it? That's where everybody wants to look at things. So I'll give you the draw first of all, and then we'll pick on a few people to talk about a few bits and bobs. The last 16 draw, this is Juventus versus Tottenham Hotspur, Basel of Switzerland against Manchester City, Porto of Portugal host Liverpool of England, of course, PSG versus Real Madrid, that's certainly a biggie, I think it's fair to say, Chelsea versus Barcelona, another big one, Bayern Munich against Besiktas, Manchester United against Sevilla of Spain, and Roma face Ukrainian champions Shakthar Donetsk. So let's work our way through them. Josh and Lana, I'll bring you both in on the first one. Lana, let's start with you. Tottenham have drawn Juventus. You follow Juve closely. What do you make of this draw from a Juventus perspective?
I'm quite excited about it, actually. It's a nice change from the usual, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid draws. So it's going to be fun to play an English team. We haven't done that in a while, as far as I can remember. And my slight worry is that if we play with the form we have, I can easily see Spurs winning. But if we actually get it together and just, make the midfield click and shape up the defense, because there's nothing wrong with the attack. It's just a matter of getting the balance in midfield and having our players fit. I think that we could beat them and progress. But again, it depends which Juve side decides to show up.
It's a very intriguing tie, Josh. And then from a Tottenham Hotspur perspective, do you think Mr. Pochettino will be happy with this? I mean, Juve have just started, as Lana mentioned, and they started to find their gear. I mean, that Derby d'Italia performance alone sort of shows that they are able to dig in again. They're not just the Juve of old, just sort of winning. Defending tight and winning games, but there was signs that they're starting to come back and find their groove again. So is this the sort of game that Poch will look at and think this is one of the toughest tests we could have got, or will he look at it and think actually no, we've dismantled Dortmund, we've dismantled Real Madrid, we can go and do Juventus now?
Yeah, I think it was that when they got the draw for the group stage, getting Dortmund and Real Madrid didn't exactly look like a walk in the park. So getting Juve in the next round is probably one of the hardest fixtures they could have picked up from finishing top of their group. But looking at it, I would say depending on how Juve approach the winter break that they'll have, because I think, as we've said, they do need to regroup from the beginning of the season, that I think Tottenham may hit them at the wrong moment. I think if the game was played next week, for example, I think Tottenham could progress in the tie, but I think with the time that's coming and the winter break that Juve can utilise to really refresh and get through there, I think they are a savvy enough team, or street smart enough to make their way through this. I'm looking especially forward to the clash, or inevitable clash, between Chiellini and Dele Alli. I think that's one certainly to watch.
Yeah, I do completely agree with you there, and it's quite a tough one to call. I think over the two legs, probably less difficult to call though, Josh, will be I say less, Basel Manchester City. Obviously we touched on the Manchester derby and Manchester City 14 successive wins in the Premier League now. A lot of people, like you said in your roundup, are starting to suggest that the league is done. That people are paying out. Manchester City are the champions in waiting. It's hard to disagree, but does this draw kind of confirm that they're going to be one of the sides to beat in the Champions League? Because I just can't see Basel over two legs causing them too many problems. Can you?
Yeah, I think, we said that last season, or at least those in the English press who hadn't seen their opponents when Manchester City drew Monaco last season, and said, it's a given. I don't think Basel are on the same level as Monaco, we'll put it that way, as last season anyway. But this could be, so long as Pep doesn't take it lightly, which I wouldn't expect him to, and seeing by February their lead could be even greater at that time, that he'll be able to rest and rotate across there. I think their fixture list isn't actually the worst of them all. I think between these ties they do have to play Chelsea, and we'll get to Chelsea. Their run is a lot worse between those fixtures, so I think they should comfortably make it through. But we have said this before, and Jose Mourinho and Manchester United will agree that Basel aren't necessarily to be taken lightly.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. I don't think at this stage of draws any game is easy, but you just look at that sort of fixture and you think Manchester City, when that ball came out the hat, you probably think they were fairly happy with that draw. But as you say, things can happen. You never know. Just sticking with you, Josh, for a minute as well. Porto, Liverpool. Similar situation this for Liverpool in terms of what they had in the group, probably. Sevilla, Porto, not too dissimilar. You'd like to think Porto are going to put up a lot more of a challenge than Spartak Moscow did. Liverpool demolished them 7-0 last time out. Question is, though, are we underrating Porto slightly? Had a very, very good qualification, came through a very decent group, and seemed to be building something again in Portugal. So is this a tougher tie than many might think for Liverpool over two legs?
Oh, I don't know. I disagree on the quality of the group they came out of. I think they rather limped through it, to be honest. But I think overall, Porto, they're basically the Liverpool of Portugal at the moment. They could score a hatful, but they could also concede so many. So it's going to be a really interesting tie for me. I think, again, it's the countries with the European break, and depending on how Porto look at their domestic campaign as well, because they're not doing particularly well, as you say, at the moment. This could be a really interesting tie for them, with the way that the English League is going at the moment, that arguably this is Liverpool's greatest chance for silverware this season, apart from the FA Cups. But again, as I say, it's going to be really close. It's a bit like Liverpool versus Sevilla. It's going to be very different, very same as that, very similar.
Yeah. I think the points you make there, Josh, are quite important. I think when you look at this tie overall, I think Liverpool fans taking this as for granted that it's an easy win might be in for a bit of a shock, and obviously the atmosphere that can be created in the Dragao is not to be underestimated as well. So we shall see what happens on that one. But let's bring Lana then in for the next one. This is probably the biggest tie out of the bag, Lana. This is the one that will have all the eyes around Europe. Real Madrid against PSG. PSG's reward for dominating their group was a tie with arguably, the reigning back-to-back champions and arguably the favourites for the competition. So, what do you make of it as a whole? I mean, PSG, they're going to have to win some big games if they're going to win this Champions League. Do you have them as slight favourites, or do you still think Real are the side to beat?
I think Real are the side to progress, mainly because we've seen it before with PSG, and when winter breaks comes, that they have a tendency to, just fall off a bit. And I think in this case, having the winter break and then their fixture lists aren't that tough, so they will be resting a lot of players, and I don't know if that's an advantage or that would most likely punish them. And we all know that PSG has this bottle mentality in the Champions League. They've never progressed that far, which is the reason why Blanc was fired and Emery was brought in, and I think that this will be his biggest test. And based on rumors in France, he's leaving this summer anyway, due to the fact that he's handled the whole Cavani Neymar thing so poorly, and they're looking into Allegri, Conte, Mourinho taking over. So I think that these two games will be the biggest test for him, whether he'll stay or not. And my main concern would be that midfield and defense of PSG, because they spend so much money on attack, fail to even remember that their midfield is still so poor, and their defense. And it's people don't understand that because they just look at the scoreline and think, okay, they won, Cavani decently scored, but these aren't easy wins. I mean, because if you see how the opposition just so easily cuts through that midfield and that defense, it's a worrying sign, because you might not, Amian might not be so clinical, but put, Ronaldo, Benzema, Bale on that ball, and you can easily see PSG getting hammered. So it depends if they're going to, go out in January, actually buy players that are eligible for the Champions League, or whether they'll just stick with their squad. But I think Madrid will progress due to experience and with their squad, and I think that Zidane might outsmart Emery.
Yeah, it's one of those. What do you make of it, Josh, from an outsider looking in? Are you sort of all aboard the PSG train, or are you looking at this and thinking, yeah, Real Madrid will be happy because they can potentially dump out one of their biggest rivals for the crown?
Yeah, so I'm slightly disappointed because this almost looks like a final that could have easily have happened this season in the Champions League, but no, we've got it in the first knockout round. So I think that also makes the whole thing intriguing, that one of the big guns is going to drop out of this Champions League race very early on. I think PSG obviously got the attacking talents there. I don't think the BBC of Real Madrid have really clicked and hit together this season. There's the stats out there that they haven't really scored. I think it's less than 10 goals between them this season, which for a forward line like that is just completely unacceptable. And I think with the fact that they're also flying out, they're not really having a winter break to play the Club World Cup, that perhaps PSG can have a bit more, will have fresher legs when this tie comes around. That being said, they're a very, very savvy team when it comes to European football. There's a lot of experience there, and I think that could be what takes them through, is just that experience, compared to we've seen PSG capitulate over the last couple of seasons when they've come up against big teams. So it's going to be an intriguing tie, I think.
Yeah, I think you might be right there, and it's one of those that you just look at and you think, could be all lots of excitement, or it could be one of those one-sided affairs. Well, you'd hope it wouldn't be a one-sided affair, but it's just so hard to tell given these fixtures, that the way they've come out. But that's probably the big tie of the round to look at. Bayern Munich Besiktas. Going to kind of scoot over that one a little bit, in that we haven't got any German or Turkish representatives on the pod, but I think we're probably all going to be in agreement that Bayern Munich are going to be fairly heavy favourites for that particular tie. I think they'll be quite happy with that one. One team that probably won't be very happy though, Lana, is Chelsea, because they've got Barcelona. Or will they be happy? Antonio Conte obviously under a lot of pressure to perform, to get it right at Chelsea, and Barcelona still a little bit sticky. It's a shame we don't have Joel with us, but what do you make of that tie? Do you think that there is a particular favourite coming into this one?
It would be stupid not to have Barcelona as favourites. After all, they do have Messi, and even on a bad day, he still has a match deciding assist or goal, and this is Conte's first real test in the Champions League. His track record with Juve wasn't a success. I wasn't fairly impressed with him in the group stages, especially against Roma, and this will be his big test. Him, much like Emery, is also leaving this summer, so it depends how it goes. He just doesn't look like I wouldn't say he doesn't care, but it's just like he knows this is his last season, and whether he wants to do his best or just like take it as it comes is up to him, because no one knows how he thinks sometimes. But I think this will be a huge game for them, and it will be an exciting one. I do think that Barcelona will win and progress. It just depends on how Chelsea will do, and the fact that the Premier League don't have a winter break. And as Josh said, their fixture list is tough as well. Going into these games, and they have to be wary of injuries and everything. And I think that they're so heavily reliant on Morata, and we know Morata's track record in the Champions League as well. So it's just crucial to him to have Morata fit and trying to rally up the troops and actually perform well for once, because we saw against Roma how bad they were. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. I do think that Barcelona will progress, but maybe at the bridge it will be more of a defensive performance by Chelsea, and in Spain, Messi will decide.
Yeah, it's one of it's one of those ties that we saw it, Josh. We saw it a few years ago, didn't we? The Gary Neville noise gate, as I'll call it, game. What do you think? I mean, Conte's one of those managers that has to, he hasn't won the big one in Europe, basically, is what I'm trying to say, and I think he's under a bit of pressure to succeed at Chelsea. There seems to be rumours of rumblings going on. I don't think that's going to end well at the end of the season. Conte and Chelsea is a marriage. I think that's going to end a bit rough myself. Is it a question of Chelsea kind of going after a Barcelona side that's not really kicked into gear, and is in your opinion, is Valverde sort of the match of Conte in terms of what he'll send his Barcelona side out to do?
Well, I mean, Conte does like trying to outsmart the Spanish, so I think he will enjoy this kind of tactical game that he'll have to play. But looking at the fixtures, as I said, the first leg they'll play for Barcelona, then they've got to play Man City, Man United, Palace, and then Barcelona again. They're not really going to have the ability to rest and rotate players, and with Conte already moaning that his squad size is not big enough to mount the kind of challenge that he needs, then it's going to be difficult, because I think there'll be an expectation around then that he'll still need to be putting out a full-strength side against the likes of City and Man United, and can't really not throw the games, but write them off as pointless, because arguably, as he said, if he's out of the title race, then, as we said, his only chance of silverware is through cup competitions, which notoriously he is not very good at getting results in. I don't think he's won a single cup competition in his managerial career.
Nope.
Is that? Yeah.
He never did at Juve.
No, never won it at Juve. Didn't do it for Italy, so that's
He
definitely
doesn't take them seriously.
Yeah, and that's the problem. When you get knocked out of a title race, then you've got this problem. You have to reassess, and if he hasn't really honed his skills in cup competitions, then this is where it could bite him on the backside. And I think Chelsea would be very happy to see the back of a manager, because they've done it before and they'll do it again. They've sacked managers who have got better records than Conte, so it's definitely going to be an intriguing game. But I think almost the whole of Chelsea's season rests on this tie.
Yeah, I think it's. I do concur with you there. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult passage in terms of how the clubs are going to get through, or how a club like Chelsea are going to get through the season, given what Manchester City are doing in the domestic league. But as you say, if they were to win the Champions League, what a nice present that would be for Antonio Conte before he disappears into the sunset, which is what I think will happen. But who knows? Who knows? That will be a tie that will grip many. Joel in particular, I'm sure. Just sticking with you, Josh, for a minute. Manchester United, Sevilla. One that interests you, excites you, or really doesn't? Because you've got kind of a clash of styles here, haven't you? Sevilla concede lots and score lots, and Manchester United tend to concede very little and don't exactly cut loose on a regular occasion. So is this exactly the sort of time Mourinho would be looking for Manchester United to reach the quarterfinals? Yeah,
as you say, it's one of those where you've got, as you say, the team that scores loads and concedes lots against the team that doesn't score a lot and doesn't concede a lot. So it could be a trademark Mourinho ball 1-0 aggregate victory across the two legs, but it could be difficult. I know Lana knows Ben Yedder well from his Ligue 1 days and France days, and perhaps he's the man to help open them up. For Sevilla, I think it could be even one of those games that the whole tie is decided on a set play or a penalty. It could be an absolute bore, so expect a 6-6 fireworks.
I disagree.
Yeah?
Do tell.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't underestimate Sevilla at all. I think that's what Liverpool did, and we saw how that went. And they did draw against Barcelona, and I think that it's a team that you never know what you can expect from. Fine, they did get smashed by Madrid at the weekend, but as you said, they're not. United is not a team that scores a lot or concedes a lot, but they do have a tendency to concede stupid goals, and I wouldn't say that their back four is that reliable, barring De Gea, because he suddenly turns into Gigi Buffon sometimes. But I do think that this is a tie that I would actually watch, because I'm very interested to see how it goes. I think that Sevilla could have a chance of progressing if the right players decide to show up.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. Well, I think it's definitely a game that interests me, just because it's such a, as we said before, a clash of cultures. So I think it will be one to keep an eye on moving forwards. As we said with all these ties, to say that it's guaranteed that a team will win or a team won't win, I think is churlish in the extreme. And the final game, we'll stick with you on this one, Lana. Roma. Facing Shakthar Donetsk. It's kind of a clash of two sides that are kind of in the same fitting in terms of billing in the Champions League, in that we don't really know what to expect of either. On their day, either can turn up and win a big game, and on the day, either can turn up and stink the place out. Roma had a really good performance at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea. Shakhtar Donetsk beating Manchester City in the group stage. They came through that tough group. What is there a favourite in this tie, and are Shakhtar once again that side people are going to look at and go, "Ooh, that's a difficult tie"?
Yeah, as you said, it's not easy to predict, because with certain ties you would be okay, but this team is going to win because they're far superior. But here they're so similar in terms of where they at. I might say lean towards Shakhtar winning, but it won't be an easy win. But again, Roma could progress and go on. You never know. But it's such an open two ties, so it will be interesting to see again which Roma side decides to show up. The one against Chelsea, or the one that lost against some random team. It's just so difficult to predict Roma because they're so bipolar at times. But they have been doing well this season, both in the league and in the Champions League. So I think this would be a good game to play. It depends again where they are in February when it comes to the league, the cups, and everything. Whether they're in a good form, have injuries. It just comes down to so much. But I think that Shakthar will progress.
Yes, I concur. Actually, I've been quite impressed with Shakthar, and they seem like a side that could surprise a few if they haven't already. Of course, they have surprised a few to this stage, so especially Manchester City. Okay, so to round off the draw, then I'm going to go back through the ties, and I want you to tell me who wins the tie. So just a one-word answer, one club answer. So Juventus, Spurs, Josh.
Juve.
Lana.
Juve.
Okay, Manchester City, Basel. Same order each time. So Josh first and Lana afterwards.
Manchester City.
Basel.
Okay. And Porto, Liverpool.
Oof. Liverpool.
Porto.
There's a pattern developing here, listeners. PSG, Real Madrid.
Oof. Real Madrid.
Ooh.
Madrid.
Ooh. Bayern Munich, Besiktas.
Besiktas.
Taliso FC.
Bayern Munich, I knew you were going there. Chelsea, Barcelona.
Chelsea.
Barcelona.
Ooh. Somebody's making Joel happy. And I've lost my fixtures. Where's my fixtures gone? Sevilla, Manchester United.
Man United.
Sevilla.
Okay, there's lots of conflicting information here. Like it. And finally, Shakhtar Donetsk and Roma.
Shakthar.
Shakhtar.
Oh, and finally we end on agreement. Okay, good stuff. So that's the Champions League draw done then. Obviously send us your thoughts if you're listening. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Have you got your own views? Chuck them across to us. I'll be interested to see what people think. However, it's the Europa League we go off to next. Never the bride, always the bridesmaid, sadly. But hey ho, nevertheless, there's some good sides in this Europa League. I'll run you through the draw as we did previously. So Crvena Zvezda, or Red Star if you prefer, hosting CSK Moscow. Borussia Dortmund against Atalanta. That's definitely the hipster's choice there. I think we had a question on that actually, which we might come to in a bit. Nice of France against Lokomotiv Moscow, also of Russia. FC Copenhagen, or Copenhagen to you and I, against Atletico Madrid, certainly one of the big guns dropping into the competition. Athletic Club Bilbao of Spain go to Spartak Moscow. AEK Athens of Greece, the sole Greek representation, host Ukrainian big guns Dynamo Kiev. Celtic of Scotland, of course, host Zenit St. Petersburg, certainly a team to watch, I think. Napoli RB Leipzig, that's got hipster written all over it, as indeed has OL Olympique Lyonnais and Villarael. And Red Bull, sorry, I shouldn't call them Red Bull now, just FC Salzburg, I apologise, against Real Sociedad of Spain. Partizan Belgrade against Victoria Pilsen. Lazio face FCSB, formerly Stoya Bucharest for the old people in old money. FC Ludogorets of Bulgaria against AC Milan. Astana crikey, where are Astana? Oh, goodness me. Kazakhstan, thank you. Good job you're here, Josh. Host Sporting Club de Portugal, who are indeed of Portugal. FC Östersunds of Sweden face Arsenal. Olympique Marseille against Sporting Braga of Portugal. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, hipsters. We're not going to cover all of these ties because, frankly, we would be complete liars if we said to you that we are experts, for example, in Crvena Svenska against FC Moscow, or CSK Moscow. So we're going to skip a few of these, but we are going to focus on a couple of them. Borussia Dortmund against Atalanta certainly being one of those. I think we have to focus on. Josh, we had somebody. Was it Jimmy? I think I'm just looking through the questions now.
I've just put it in the chat box.
Oh, you beauty! Lovely job.
But it
was Bobby, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was his choice. Was the Atalanta game.
Good stuff, Bobby Chakraborty. So, what do we make then of that particular tie? You can both have a say on this one if you like. So, from a German perspective, we touched on the quick whistle-stop tour of Germany this week, Josh, that Peter Bosch is no more. Borussia Dortmund, actually, as we record this live, I think are still winning. They certainly were a goal up last time I checked, frantically checks the scores. Yes, they are still 1-0 up in Mainz into the last minute there. So, Peter Bosch gone, Peter Stöger in. Do we think Borussia Dortmund still have to be regarded as one of the favourites for the Europa League, given that they've drawn Atalanta in the hipster tie?
I'm going to be controversial to what you're saying no.
Explain.
I saw what Atalanta did to Everton, albeit Everton were absolutely awful. That's still a team full of very, very good players. Really experienced team and just woefully out of form and in a poor system. And I think if their new manager at Dortmund can't turn that system around, because that's the problem they've got at the moment, is they're just blighted by injuries and systemic issues, then this could be a tie that causes them a lot of problems, especially if they're not able to hold on to some of their big stars in January, for which I've heard rumours about some of their big players potentially moving out in the January window.
Interesting. Okay, so do you want to make a cause for the opposition then, Lana? Atalanta, you've seen a little bit of them following Serie A. As Josh said, they've been really impressive in the group, coming through the same group that your beloved Lyon were in. So are we not giving them enough credit, Atalanta, in this tie? Are they real representatives that could cause Dortmund some issues?
Yeah, I agree with Josh. I think that they were really good against Lyon. And I think Dortmund is getting too much hype and recognition due to, because of their history in the Cup and the Champions League and all that. But I think it's time to, let them step aside and give Atalanta the praise and the respect that they deserve. Because, yes, people might say, oh, but they were in a group with Limassol, Everton, Lyon, but they were really, really impressive against Everton, against both their games against Lyon. And I think that, they have such an exciting team as well. And they have nothing to lose. And I think they're more eager and more determined to actually want to win this. And who knows, they could potentially go on to win the whole competition if they perform as well as they have. And they're my favorites for this tie.
Interesting. Okay, fair enough. I can definitely see where you both are coming from. I still think Dortmund probably will have the edge over the two ties, but bear in mind we're 2 months away from this tie, so much can change depending on how Stöger sort of sorts out. It's a very difficult one. Very, very difficult one. But yeah, that's a tie that I'll be keeping a close eye on. Lana, from a French perspective, let's touch on Nice against Lokomotiv Moscow. Is this the competition Nice need to be focusing on now? We mentioned their return to form in Liga, or certainly last 3 games, they're back up to 8th and starting to put together a run. And we mentioned in Liga that barring maybe the top 3, it's a league where you can win 3 or 4 games and shoot up the table, because I remember them being third bottom just 3 or 4 weeks ago. So assuming they can keep their form in Liga, is this a competition they've got to look at and say we could go deep into this with a tie like Moscow?
They should, but last season they didn't give a rat's ass about the Europe at all, which we saw in the results, because their main focus was on the league. I think it will be different this season. If they can continue their form. I know that Balotelli has, really stepped up. Alessandro play as well. and it's so important to get these players back on form, the whole team, and just give Europa League a chance. It won't hurt to try. I just hope that they go into both these games with the mentality of, okay, we can actually beat them. It will be a difficult tie. So, as you said, it depends if they actually will focus on it or not. And just a matter of actually keeping up with the performance as they have in the last 3 games. And in League One, it's, anything can happen. So it's like you have to treat every game as a final.
Yeah, agreed. It's one of those ties that you look at and you think, yeah, on paper Nice should be the strongest side, but a trip to Russia in the cold months is not ideal. Really not ideal at all. Josh, I'm going to sort of pick on you for double Spanish accent in the absence of Joel here, so you can kind of fumble your way through this as best you can. But 2 clubs that you look at, 2 Atletico, well, an Athletic and an Atletico. Atletico Madrid surely have got to be one of the favourites for this competition, given Simeone's ability, given the squad they've got. They were largely underwhelming in the Champions League, but they've drawn Copenhagen in their tie, and Athletic Club Bilbao go to Russia as Nice do with Spartak Moscow, also dropping down from the Champions League. Would you say that these 2 Spanish sides again are 2 sides that you'd be looking for in probably the last 8, maybe even the last 4, and in Atletico's case, maybe a potential finalist again?
Yeah, I think Atletico can certainly get through their tie against Copenhagen. I was a little bit worried when the draw was occurring that Arsenal could end up with Copenhagen. I just remember them last season in the Champions League. They really troubled Leicester with some fantastic displays with defensive work there to really stave off what was last season quite a potent attack in the Champions League. But I think Atletico, again, they're another club in Spain that desperately need that winter break to kind of reassess their season and get going again. But I think that they could arguably push on there. This may actually be a way in for them to get into the Champions League with the way that the league is set up at the moment. But as you said, with the Athletic Club, they've got to go to Spartak Moscow. I've just got a feeling Spartak might do that if they can get a decent result in their home tie. I think that would be enough for them to take that lead to Spain and see that out. I'm not too sure that Bilbao have got enough about them to push through that tie if Spartak managed to get a comfortable victory in Russia in the first round.
It does look like one of those, or 2 of those sides. They've got difficult jobs on, but both sides surely would be looking to progress from those 2 ties. You'd think they'd be the favourites. We are going to skip over Dynamo Kiev and Athens, but Lana, let's talk Celtic and Zenit St. Petersburg. Now, we know Celtic don't have the greatest degree of competition in terms of the league in Scotland. It's unfortunately just a fact. But in European competition, it's probably the draw they least wanted because they've got a very wily Italian manager to face and a trip to Russia against, again, a side like Zenit you'd think would have some sort of plans to get deep in this competition. Do you give Celtic much chance, or do you think this is Zenit's tie to lose?
Yeah, I think it's a tie to lose, but again, anything can happen. It's a difficult one because who would want to travel to Zenit in February? I mean, it's minus God knows how many degrees, and I'm not sure it gets that cold in Celtic. So it's a tie where Zenit should win it, but Celtic might show up and surprise. Depends on how it goes in Scotland before they travel to Zenit, or the other way around. I don't know who plays at home first. But
it's Celtic first, I think, at the home. Yeah, Celtic home first. Yeah.
Yeah, but so it depends on the result at home before they travel to Zenit. I mean, it's cold. It's really cold.
It's cold in Scotland.
Yes, Scotland's not much warmer.
But is it minus 5 degrees?
The reception they'll get will be like that.
Yeah,
certainly be a frosty relation.
Yeah, and I think Zenit will have the advantage of having that 12th man being the fans, because
Celtic
they're
will have
like,
that
well,
as well.
Yeah, I think a lot. This is going to be an atmospheric game, I think, isn't it? I
Mhm.
think I don't like the idea of some of Zenit's fans in Scotland. I think that has potential for it all to go a little bit wrong. But yeah, I mean, you look at that squad at Zenit St. Petersburg. It's not a bad squad. There's a lot of Russian players in it, but a lot of basically a majority of the Russian national side, and in Roberto Mancini, experienced hand at the tiller as well. It will be tough for Celtic, but on any given night, see Barcelona, they can do special things. So it's hard to call. It's hard to call. Maybe we'll come back to that one in terms of who we are going to call for it. But yes, and indeed, as you rightly said, there, Josh Paredes is one of the players who is part of that side. So. Okay, right. Well, that's Celtic covered. Lana, let's talk Napoli next. In fact, we'll stick with you for the next two. So Napoli, Leipzig. Maurizio Sarri's men running out of puff a bit in Serie A. Is the egg, or are the eggs, I should say, to put it in correct English, are the eggs going to go in the Europa League basket again? Because RB Leipzig's no easy tie either, is it?
No, it's not. It's my hipster's choice, because they drew at the weekend. They played 0-0. And I did say in the beginning that Napoli will probably fall down. It just depends when. I do hope that they continue, because it's been a great title race in Serie A, and I want it to stay that way. But you can see that they're slowly starting to get tired, and a winter break is much needed for them, without a doubt. But I quite like this tie. It could go either way, because Napoli, on their day, are so good. But then again, Leipzig it's such an exciting team as well, because you never know which team is going to show up. And, I have a soft spot with them because of Emil Forsberg, and I want him to do well. So it could go either way, but I think that Napoli will win it, because on paper they have a much better squad than Leipzig does.
Yeah, it's that old line of on paper again, isn't it? It's just really hard to judge. But speaking of on paper, your beloved OL Lyon faced Villarreal. Any concerns about this one? Because again, the final is in the Parc OL, Stade de Lumière, whatever you want to call it. So surely that's a bit of a curse in terms of when a team has a final at their own ground. They very rarely get there. But Lyon will be, exactly. Lyon will be motivated by that potential chance of playing in their home stadium, and looking at the squad. And we mentioned Hassan Mawar and all the other, of course, your beloved Fekir. There's plenty of talent in that Lyon squad, but there's also something really interesting happening at Villarreal, who've had a really good season in La Liga, whatever way you look at it. So, are you confident? Are you slightly nervous? What's the general feeling when this tie came out the bag?
Concerned. Very concerned, because after the break, Lyon play PSG, Bordeaux, Monaco, Rennes, Villarreal, Lille, Villarreal, Saint-Etienne, Montpellier. So I'm not sure we'll even have a fit squad by the time they play Villarreal. It all depends on how the results in the league go, because they're a team that functions so heavily on confidence. It's such a young squad. They don't really have that leadership, which they could look to in Gonalon, even though he wasn't the greatest player. But it's a fresh new team, basically, after losing so many leading players, in the likes of Lacazette, Umtiti, Tolisso, and now, with this heavy fixture list in League One and going into the Villarreal game as well, I'm worried a lot. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to lie and say, oh, we're going to win it. It all comes down to how it goes in League One. And if they can come away with at least 6 or 8 points from these, tough fixtures, then I would say that their confidence because, on their day, Lyon can beat anyone. It's just a matter of being confident enough to actually do it. So I won't be confident until I've seen how they do in League One, and then when the game day comes, I'll be like, my gut will tell me if they're gonna win or not. They play away first, no, home, sorry, and then they go away. So it's all about scoring and not conceding at home, and then going away. Because, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I'm worried because, as you said, Villarreal are doing well, and it's not a team that you want to underestimate. And Spanish teams do have a tendency to do well in both the Champions League and Europa League. So,
yeah, tough. I think that's probably the good word to use, isn't it? Tough, looking at it as a whole. But
nerve-wracking. I just want to die, basically.
I'm sure it's not that bad. Okay, and just sort of glancing through a couple of times, well, I think it's fair to say Sociedad are probably going to be favourites against Salzburg, and I think Lazio are likely to be the favourites in terms of FCSB. Probably Milan likely against Ludogorets, but it's Milan, so who knows. But the other games I wanted to focus on, one each for Lana and Josh, before we get some predictions. Josh, you can have Arsenal. They've drawn against Graham Potter, the Englishman's Swedish side, Östersunds. It's going to be cold when they go over there. It's not going to be an easy tie for Arsenal by any stretch of the imagination, but you'd think Arsenal be favourites. If you agree with that, feel free to chip in and say so. But more importantly, is this going to be a sort of a period of time where Arsene Wenger can still send a scratch side, or is it going to be more of the big guns, if you pardon the pun, coming out for this tie? Because you'd think if Arsenal can get a job done in Sweden, they can probably afford to rest a few the second leg. But are they going to have to go big when they travel to the away leg first?
Yeah, I wouldn't underestimate this side. I think there's a couple of ties that we've seen that, you look at the minnow in there and you're thinking, well, perhaps, this is a bit like an FA Cup tie. I think that's how I'm kind of seeing the Europa League at the moment for Arsenal, is these are all kind of FA Cup style games, third or fourth round. I've seen Östersund being compared to the Lincoln tie that Arsenal got last season, with the kind of sense of, oh, this is their big day out. But that's the worrying thing about it, is it's their big day out. If there's no expectation they'll get further than this, there is no pressure on them whatsoever. They're able to relax and go about their game. I think their story in general is incredible. They were founded a month after Arsene Wenger was instated as manager of Arsenal. That's the kind of how young this club is, and Graham Potter being with them since they were in the 4th division, taking them all the way up to the top division and winning the cup that got them in this competition. I think it's a fantastic story. I would be cautious. I think in that Lincoln game, to throw back to that, we went with some fairly big games in there, big names. I'm thinking like the likes of Theo Walcott travelled, so I would imagine that we'll start to see a few of the first teamers in there, especially as it's going to be pretty chilly up there. So I would expect that's the... I still expect Arsenal to get through, but it's going to be a tricky tie, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I think it's one of those you can't take for granted, but you'd think over the two legs, you'd like to think anyway, that Arsenal will have enough to overpower that opposition.
Don't underestimate them, because as Josh said, they're a new exciting team, and they have nothing to lose, and they have done well in Europa League. And they do have a really good striker who also happens to be from the same place that I am. Yeah, he's Kurdish, and he's also the captain, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be really cold up there. I checked. I think it's going to be around. Last year, it was around like minus 18 degrees.
Ouch.
And I don't see Mesut Ozil being able to play in those conditions.
If he's still there, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do wonder what sort of side Arsenal will potentially put out in that tie. But as you say, take nothing for granted in any competition. And to round us off, Lana, let's stick with you and just ask you about Marseille. who again, grand old sort of name of European football, grand old name of the Europa League potentially. They didn't exactly impress in terms of coming through the group. They didn't exactly blow anyone away. I don't think they blow anyone away full stop, to be perfectly honest. But they've drawn Sporting Braga. Is this more banana skin, or do we think there's a potential of Marseille finally getting things together and actually making a run in this particular competition?
It could go both ways. As you said, Marseille has not been impressive at all in Europe. The fact that they actually progressed was shocking, considering how poorly they've been. And this should be a game that they should win, because they have the players. It's just a matter of actually going out and strengthening their fullback, or actually their defense, period. Because they're defensively shocking and have been all season so far. And they need to go in this January and strengthen their side in order to actually go further in Europa League. Because if they progress, who knows, they might go on to meet Atletico Madrid, Arsenal, all these big teams. And they're probably not going to be so forgiving in front of goals as maybe the teams that Marseille played in the group stages.
It's one of those, isn't it? You look at that tie and you go, could be really, really dull, or it could be quite an exciting tie.
It would be hilarious if they won out. I mean, I would bully Mohammed for days, for weeks, months.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that would be quite amusing given the levels that they hold themselves in. But tough one to judge that, but one that we will be keeping an eye on nevertheless. Well, keep an eye on all of them, of course. Now, rather than asking you to predict each individual game this time, because as I say, be honest, we're looking at some of the ties and thinking not really too sure about certain clubs involved in the ties. It's a bit difficult to predict winners as such. So I just want you both to pick 3 sides that you think can potentially win the competition based on the draw. So I know I've dropped that on you a little bit, but 3 sides. In fact, I'm going to ask you for 3 sides and 1 hipster side to keep an eye on. So 3 potential winners, 1 hipster. Josh, what are your 3 sides you think can win it, and who's your hipster side to follow?
Okay, Arsenal is going to be a side that can win it. That seems a given that I'll go for that. I'm going to go for Napoli. And Lana, don't be angry, I'm not going to mention Lyon in this at all, so I can't jinx them one way or another. I will go with Zenit, I think could also have Lazio. I'll go Lazio for it. That seems a decent one. And then a hipster one that could come through. I'd say Atalanta, because nobody's giving them any credit. I think they could dark horse their way, certainly to a final.
Okay, yeah, Zenit were actually my probably hipster dark horse pick, actually. Lana, who's your 3 that you think can win it, and who's your hipster side to follow?
I would say Arsenal as well. It just depends on the side that Wenger picks, and if he's taking this competition seriously. Lazio as well. I have to say Lyon, or else I think I'm going to be killed by Lyon fans, and the fact that the final is on their stadium. My hipster's choice would be Atalanta as well, because as Josh said, they're not getting enough credit, and they might just surprise us all and be like, you know what, screw you all, we're going to win this.
Interesting. Okay, just in case anyone cares, for me, Atletico Madrid, sadly, as an Arsenal fan, are the favourites, I think. Arsenal would be another side that I'd pick as a team to win it. And I think probably the 3rd team, I'm going to stick with my guns and say Borussia Dortmund, just because I think that they're going to have things together by then, and I think they shouldn't be underestimated. As far as the hipster side to follow, I'm going to go completely outside the box. Lazio, probably and Zenit are the 2 dark horses, but I'm going to plump for RB Leipzig to upset Napoli. I think that one's one that I think might just happen. So we shall see. Okay. Right. Well, hopefully we've given you a little bit of an insight into the Europa League and Champions League draws with this slightly different podcast tonight. We are going to finish with a few of your questions, which Josh and I hopefully have got across. There aren't too many, so we'll whip through these. Obviously, we've covered Bobby Chakraborty's. Let's pick on the next one. Josh, you've got one from Jimmy, I think, haven't you, from our pal Jimmy?
We've covered the first half of it already because we've covered one competition. But which team from each competition do you think may have a chance of making a run despite not being one of the favourites? So I think we just need to go through Champions League on that because we've done Europa, haven't we?
We kind of have, yeah. Lana, have you got anybody that stands out Champions League wise? I mean, it's difficult to pick anybody to win it other than the obvious, really, but maybe we could say a side that could go deep in the competition, not necessarily win it, that you think could be an unexpected one.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think that I have a feeling that Juve is going to get to the final and choke again and just put more misery on Buffon. I think that if PSG beat Madrid, that there would be my favorites to end up in the final alongside City.
Interesting. Have you got any, Josh? I mean, looking at that draw, looking at the Champions League, Shakthar, I know we've pointed out before, but they just strike me as a team that I'd be intrigued to see what they do with Roma. And then the other one for me is, I know we've mentioned before, but Porto. I don't know why, it's just something about Porto this season that I think they can upset Liverpool. And then depending on who they draw next, I mean, they could go deep. So have you got any ideas as who you'd put forward?
I'm going to go Manchester City.
As a dark horse?
Yeah, I think so. They're smashing it in the league, but look at their European form. It's not great. And they're one of those teams that now that the draw has kind of opened up a bit with PSG and Real Madrid, with only one coming out of that, the large number of English teams that are in the draw and look that they could progress, and Man City seem to have got the taking of all of those sides. I think this is a draw that they could progress very well through. I know they've spent £1 gazillion in the summer to get there, but I think in terms of looking at their European credentials, you've got some big sides still in there. I think a Barcelona, a Real Madrid, a Juve still has bigger credentials than a Manchester City to get to the final. I think even a Bayern Munich, even though they've got, I don't think they'll progress on that tie. They could always get through, and that's another big European powerhouse. I think when you're looking at it, I think that's why Man City are really a dark horse. As you say, there's no big sides in there, or no small sides really, apart from, say, the Shakthar, Roma, and probably Besiktas. But I think Manchester City is one of those sides that don't have huge European credentials and could get through.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, that's fair points, well made. So hopefully that answers your question there, Jimmy. We also had this question, Josh. I think you can probably see it as well. Dr. Mantis Toboggan, great name. Real Madrid versus PSG. Obviously a huge draw for both teams and neutrals alike. Looking back, what draws have you been most excited for in the past and why? And what was the result over two legs? I can't think of too many. I don't know if either of you two got any draws you can remember. I can remember like certain ties. I still remember that Dortmund Juve final from years ago. I still remember that Real Madrid game with Manchester United when Ronaldo got that hat trick. That Ronaldo, not the other Ronaldo. And that outrageous piece of skill. Was it Fernando Redondo did somebody inside out on the touchline? I think it might have been Gary Neville to set up a goal for Morientes, I think it might have been. Or Raul, one of the two. Anyway, that's kind of memory. So maybe we should slightly just tweak the question a little bit. Any specific ties or memories that you can think of from previous Champions League or Europa League games? Europa League or UEFA Cup as well. That Alaves Liverpool final, was that 4-5? I think it was. So yeah, any of you got anything, Lana? Have you got any ties you remember specifically, or moments or draws?
I remember Fulham beating us 4-1.
Oh, I remember that as well at Craven Cottage. Yes. Yeah.
That's like a fun memory. I think like the most entertaining one would probably be the Chelsea Barcelona, where Drogba just went mental, just the whole
The Ronaldinho goal. Yeah.
the whole scandal and everything. That would probably be one of my picks.
Any from you, Josh? I'm thinking back. Something else has just come racing to my mind. Do you remember a Gaisca Mendieta-inspired Middlesbrough final? Was it final, semi-final? I can't remember who was it they played. Do you remember? Can you think this far back?
It wasn't Juve, was it? It wasn't
No,
Juve.
it was.
I should know this as a Middlesbrough fan in my office. He tells me constantly about this.
I'm sure it's a Spanish side. I want to say that's someone like Celta Vigo, or I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah, I think it's maybe Villarael off the top of my head.
I'm gonna Google it.
But anyway, I was actually going to go with another Chelsea tie. The Torres one. I think that whole kind of the Chelsea-Barcelona recent fixtures have been absolutely mad. I can remember, the John Terry red card that then led to him coming out in his full kit in the final.
Yeah.
It's all sorts in that kind of game. Who else? What other big ties? I only really know disappointments because I've really only watched Arsenal games in the few years of Champions League
What
games.
about the one with Ramos and the penalty? Was that in a final as well?
For Real.
Is that the Atletico one?
Atletico Madrid penalty. Yeah, I think it was.
That
one of
was
his 487 sendings off, wasn't it, as well? I think that was in a final. Yeah, I do recall that. Are you because you're slightly behind me in age, Josh? Do you remember the 0-0 final between AC Milan and was it Juve at Old Trafford?
Slightly is doing you a very big favour.
that was honestly, that was just painful. But I do remember, and of course, who can forget the Liverpool game, the 3-3 with Milan? I mean, that's probably up there with one of the great of all time draws, wasn't it? I mean, that's just absolutely crackers in terms of that result. This UEFA Cup run, by the way, for Middlesbrough, I'm just looking at it now. It was Sevilla. They lost in the final 4-0. But that isn't the game I'm thinking of, is it? Because that was a 4-0 demolishing. But they definitely had a game in I think it was it a quarter-final or a semi-final when they went absolutely crackers, and it was just a nuts game. And I can't find it. I really can't find it. So Josh, that's your goal now.
Was that the Fairs Cup? They did that in.
No, I'm sure it was a semi. Or maybe it was Steaua Bucharest 4-2. Maybe it was that game.
Yeah, that was a big game because Bucharest were a heavyweight at that time.
Yeah, 4-3 on aggregate. Maybe that was the game.
I do remember the Marcus Senna game when he absolutely ruined Arsenal in that Villarael.
Yes, the Jens Lehmann penalty save game, or
yes, that one. That was a cracking game. Yeah,
Riquelme was in the penalty. Yeah, I remember that. And do you remember Arsenal beating Juventus? Sorry, Lana, at Highbury as well with the Bergkamp to Lundberg assist, famously in Thierry Henry in the Bernabeu and the run to the final.
Why are we mentioning Juve and their failures in the Champions League? Can we change the subject, please?
Basically, because that's all they do in the Champions League is fail.
Shut up.
Unfortunately. But yeah.
What about the Solskjaer goal in the Champions League final? Was that in 99?
99, the treble.
For the treble.
Yeah. That was a good one as well.
Unbelievable that to win it in stoppage time. It's just absolutely incredible, that game. Really was.
As was Istanbul.
Yes, indeed, yeah. And speaking of incredible, we're recording this live. Crystal Palace were 1-0 down to Watford going into stoppage time and have seemingly won it 2-1. Amazing.
Wow, I can't bet out on Watford to win.
And one of the goal scorers, Bakary Sacco, Wolves fans might remember him. I don't know who got the winner, but stay tuned, people. I'll let you know. I'm just waiting for the inevitable winner from Benteke. I'm sure that's probably he's got it after his episode with the penalty spot at the weekend. I'll keep you tuned when I know. But yeah, that's some good memories. Some good memories there. So I know we kind of butchered your question there, Mr. Toboggan, but hopefully we've kind of given you some memories to think back on and do some research on that Middlesbrough game. If there's anybody supports Middlesbrough listening to this podcast, please let us know. Or if not, Josh, if you can get on the case with your guy you work with, find out. I think the Steyer game was actually the game I'm thinking of. It was James MacArthur, by the way, for Palace, the winner. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Steyer Bucharest, but I just remember watching it at a friend's house and it being an absolutely crazy quarter or semi-final. So there you go. Shout out to Middlesbrough fans. The last question we're going to answer came into us from our inbox. That's our good friend Gage Reynolds. Thank you, Gage. Slightly off topic, so to speak, but on topic at the same time. Which European club could you guys see becoming the next super club? So I guess what we're saying there is, who do we see being the next PSG, Man City, Chelsea? They're probably the big three I can think of in terms of money being pumped into them out of nowhere. I'm going to ask you two separate questions. So Josh, I'm going to ask you, who do you see as being the most marketable club for someone to come in with big money and turn into a European super club?
Oh, that's difficult because you've taken my answer from me by changing the question.
Okay, all right. I tell you what.
No, it's all right.
I can give Lana that one if you've got an answer lined up. That gives.
Well,
Lana
no,
some
I'll have a think about it. Yeah, I'll have a think about who I think could come in as a project because I was going to go Manchester City as the next super club. But give me a second and I will have a think if Lana's got anything coming up.
Okay. What do you reckon then? What do you reckon, Lana? Is there a club that you can see that if somebody from Qatar or somebody with lots and lots of money would look at and think, quite fancy taking that club on board?
I would say City as well. Actually, I don't see anyone from France or Italy being the next, super. Cut the PSG too, because PSG has already sealed that. But yeah, I'd probably go for City.
Okay, so you've both gone for a club that's already got money and has already got financial wealth and backing. So I mean, is there not an up? I mean, I look at someone like an RB Leipzig, who are heavily bankrolled. Could they make the next step? Monaco flirted with it, but it didn't really happen. You got any ideas, Josh?
Well, I was thinking that what we're looking for is, the two teams that we kind of have with PSG and City, they've got loads of money, but they don't have the pedigree yet. Because the other flip side is if you look at the teams that aren't in these competitions but could resurrect themselves are all ex-super clubs. So you're looking at in Italy, it's the two Milan sides, and you can't say that they're not super clubs because
even Lazio potentially.
Well, yeah, Lazio
Roma,
one of those, but you're looking at what Inter and AC Milan are doing at the moment, and you're like, can Lazio really continue with that? So personally, I can't see anyone from Italy. It's more resurrecting a fallen status rather than becoming a super club, because I think they've already done it.
Same goes for Marseille in France under that flag as well.
Yeah,
I was going to say that.
Yeah, a club
Marseille
that
have
has this
fallen
Champions
giant
project. Yeah.
But I would go with as City haven't done anything in Europe ever before, and if you look at their history of the last 20 years, they were in the second division for part of that, and that is the kind of rags to riches story.
Yeah, I can see both sides of that argument. I think you both got excellent points there. I'm just kind of glancing through big European names and big leagues. I tell you where there isn't a lot of money floating around, but all of a sudden potential for a turnaround. Spain. You look at someone like Valencia. You think of their European pedigree and history. If they've got a bit of money behind them now with Peter Lim and whatnot. This season they've been unbelievable in terms of what they've turned around from where they were previously, and I'm sure Joel would speak better than I. They strike me as a club that with the right backing could potentially come back again. They're probably the one sole representative in Spain. I don't really see Sevilla or Atletico. Atletico now have the stadium, but I just don't think they'll ever I don't think they'll ever compete at the highest level on that regard. Lana, I can't think of anyone else in France other than Marseille to compete with PSG. I think Monaco's time is come and gone.
I don't see Aulas ever letting the likes of the Qataris or the Chinese or the Russians take over.
No.
considering he spends 99% of his time bashing PSG for it.
Yeah, I think the only club you could see maybe coming back other than Marseille from the grand old days would be a St Etienne, maybe. But
Hopefully.
I mean, they're an absolute basket case at the moment, so you can't see, unless they had massive funding and a whole change around, I can't see that happening. And then looking at Germany, I mean, it's difficult to pick out anyone there. I mean, so we got Dortmund and Munich. RB Leipzig are the obvious ones I've mentioned before. Leverkusen have flirted. They got to a final, didn't they, when they were beaten by that Zidane goal all those years ago. There's some big clubs in Germany that are just floating. Werder Bremen, Wolfsburg, Hertha Berlin, even arguably Schalke are a big side from European days of past, but difficult to pinpoint anyone else from that league. And Josh, you've covered the Italian sides quite nicely. And in terms of England, I think the money is at the clubs it needs to be at. I do wonder if a side from the Championship ever got back to the Premier League, like, you know where I'm going to go here probably, a Leeds or a Nottingham Forest. Or did I not go where you thought I was going to go there? Wolves?
I thought yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go, seeing as they've already got Champions League quality players down there. But really, really left field, if you feel like it. A team has just snuck into fourth after their result tonight. Burnley?
No, not for me. God bless them and all they stand for, but not for me. I don't think. Newcastle is another one, isn't it?
What about Spurs?
Yeah, let's not talk about that. No, in the interest, actually, Gage is a Spurs fan, so we probably should say, yeah. I think the biggest thing, taking my Arsenal hat off, on the Spurs argument is keeping their players under a Daniel Levy regime. I think that's going to be the biggest issue they've got, because if they don't win anything this season, you know, we've already heard the talk about Dele Alli's agent, and I think Toby Alderweireld's contract was leaked recently. Was it 50k? He was on a week or something. It's a ridiculous amount. You know, Harry Kane, as loyal as he is, and as much as he loves Spurs, and clearly he does, there's going to come a point in his career where he is surely going to look at it and think, if I want to win the big medals, can I afford to be Tottenham for life? And of course, the biggest thing, the manager. You know, do Real Madrid or Barcelona come calling for him at some point? I just don't know with Spurs. I think, yeah, the infrastructure is there with the new stadium, and the squad potentially is there, but they've got to keep that squad together and build on it. And I just think that's going to be a really tough ask without funding.
Is there a potential he could also be poached by PSG if they're looking to get rid of Emery and he's an ex-player?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I still think Conte is more likely to be the one pulled away.
Allegri was their main focus. Allegri, Mourinho, and Conte. I saw the Keep, I think, mentioned it.
Luis Enrique is still available as well, is he not?
Yeah, but I think that they're really going to try for Allegri next summer.
And I think, given what's happened with Unai Emery, who is a middle of the road Spanish coach, let's be honest, at Sevilla, doing good things at Sevilla, but a middle of the road coach, I can't see. Although Luis Enrique managed Barcelona and was a player of some distinction, I can't see them going Spanish again after what's here. So, no, I think Conte's shoe-in for that job. But you're right, Josh. You know, given another year, 2 years, maybe there's a room for Poch to be reunited at PSG. But yeah, and as I said, like the Championship-wise, I can't see even a Wolves, even if they got to the Premier League, it's a massive leap. It's Leicester proportions, isn't it, to go from a club that's challenging in the Premier League, having come up from the Championship, to then once again being a superpower. And I just thought, looking at the Championship as a whole, Forest and Leeds are the two clubs who've got a bit of history in European competition. Norwich, I suppose, are the other ones, but they're really not in the talk at the moment. So I just think maybe, especially Leeds, I think if somebody gets that club right, you know, the fan base, the ground, the history they've got, I just think that they are a potential nest egg for someone, maybe a popular sports, maybe a popular energy drink. Josh could pitch up at Leeds at some point. There's been a few rumours, hasn't there, about Red Bull having a look at Leeds and Forest, actually, wasn't there, recently? So it's one of them.
I can't believe. I can't remember who their last RB was. It wasn't Swindon. It was someone like that, though.
They had a look at Swindon, didn't they?
They
Yeah.
did. There was one recently that came. Oh, Bradford.
Bradford,
That was
that's
it,
right.
because it was
Yeah.
linking with Bradford Bulls then.
The Red Bull Bulls. Yeah, I don't know whether that's ever going to happen, but what would be very, very interesting is if you got a superpower from a nation that isn't heralded in European football at the moment, and that's where you probably open up the Russian teams, maybe Portugal. Look at Benfica and Porto. I can't see a Dutch side making the grade, but that would be really interesting if you got a club, particularly from Russia. I think would be the ones I'd look at and say, or a Shakthar, heavily bankrolled, made a European run. So, yeah, it's a good question, that, Gage. That provoked quite the debate. So thank you very much for that. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up there then. I think we've given you nearly a good solid 90 minutes, maybe a bit more this week. Show with a bit of a difference. It would be unfair of me to not offer my guests any other business. So anything else from either of you two that you wanted to mention from the weekend's games or from the current situation in either of the leagues you follow?
I'll just end it with don't cry over spilt milk.
Oh, I see what you've done there. I'm sure if Jose's listening, I'm sure Duncan Castles might wipe those tears dry. Bless him. Anything from you, Lana? I'm sure you want to quickly give a nod to your new love, Mr. OR, from the weekend, seeing as I gleefully skipped over it.
Yeah, you ripped my mind. Big shout out to him. He is this season's big teenage sensation, and most of the big clubs are after him, Barcelona being one of them, even Arsenal, apparently.
So, in other words, Arsenal show interest in him in 5 years when they could have signed him this year, but chose not to, and he's become.
Or wait, 16 years, or 12, how long they did with Lacazette.
Arsene Wenger bought him a McDonald's 10 years ago, but never signed him. Yeah, good. And shout out to Corentin Tolisso. Was it 2 goals he got 2 weeks ago? Was it a fortnight ago he got the 2 goals?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Bless him. And of course, Alex Lacazette's powers of recovery from a fortnight ago as well. Equally quite amusing. But yes, and I will end the podcast with just a quick shout out to a gentleman we didn't mention last week, Josh, the gentleman who has come forward and apologised for his behaviour at a certain Sunderland match. This story that went around that he sort of dropped trow, didn't he, in the stands. It was a fortnight ago this happened, but he's come out in the last week and apologised that he didn't actually do a number 2, but he might have done a number 1. And Sunderland are debating as to what they're going to do in terms of the action taken against him. That's probably a interesting way to end the podcast, but something we don't promote on this podcast. Let us talk the you know what and don't do it in the stadium. Would that be a fair argument, Josh? I think that's probably what we're going to say.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yes. We'll do the verbal diarrhea less than the actual diarrhea. Anyway, what a way to end it. We will leave the podcast there. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Check out the sponsors, of course, Chris and his team at 4 Elements. You had the sting at the start of the show. We'll be updating that over the Christmas period because they've got some exciting promos to come, so stay tuned for that. Speaking of the Christmas period, this podcast will take a hiatus at Christmas. I know, I'm sorry, but we all have lives and it's very difficult to get us all together at this time of year, so we will take a break. We're not sure whether that will be as of next week or whether it will be after that, but stay tuned to the Twitter feed. What might happen is that we sort of do a bit of a change of day at some point and get a Christmas special recorded in advance. We're not sure, but we'll still be in your ears. We'll still be back, but stay tuned as the days may change coming up ahead of time. So keep tuned. We are at the FH Podcast. You can find us on all the usual platforms, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. Big shout out to John for doing the uploads for us every week after Josh has done his skills on them as well. And yes, keep tuned to us and do give us your feedback if you enjoyed this episode tonight. We thought we'd change it up a bit rather than just going over stuff that you've probably heard all about from the weekend already. So do let us know what you think. I shall wrap up the podcast there then. Keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy as always. And my thanks very much to Lana. Thank you, Lana.
Thank you.
And thank you, Josh.
Cheers, Chris.
And thank you to all the team, even in their absences. We'll be back. Stay tuned to our Twitter feed. Keep sending in those reviews, and we'll speak to you very soon.